What has happened? What has transpired here at the First Bank Center here in Denver, Colorado? It wasn't just a big night of fights. It was a big night of memorable moments.
Conor McGregor with us here in Denver, Colorado. Little left hand from Ron Paul. Right hand, right back from Mike Perry. Can I get a face-off with Conor McGregor, man?
It's an incredible setup here, incredible matchmaking, incredible storytelling. Oh, you had to come here. All these fighters that step in here are warriors, and all have my respect. And I'm into this game, yeah, we'll be into this, yeah.
And we are live here in the Maverick Center here in Salt Lake City. What a night. It is going to be historic indeed for BKFC's 56.
Whoever's the king of violence right here, this is going to be a great fight. Early on the turn. Right hand from Mike Perry. Double jab. Who's the king of violence? I am!
Combat fighting in its purest form, bare knuckle fighting in the city of angels.
80 seconds.
We've got the biggest announcement in the BKFC history we're about to make, so let's make that announcement.
What's up, Knucklemania? The notorious Conor McGregor here. Ladies and gentlemen, the huge announcement that I have for you today. Conor McGregor, myself, and McGregor Sports and Entertainment is now an owner of Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship. Welcome to the big leagues. David Feldman, baby, we did it.
He's now an owner of BKFC with us, and we're going to take this motherfucking thing all the way to the top now.
Welcome to hour number 3, live right here on the early line on SportsGrid. Win Total Tuesday continues around the NFC East. 2 more teams to die through: the Washington Commanders and the New York Giants, both with a win total of 6.5, but maybe with differing expectations entering 2024. We will set you up for a huge Tuesday over in Paris. Quarterfinal action in the men's basketball tournament, with the United States taking on Brazil in the 4th and final game of quarterfinal Tuesday over in Paris. More Olympic primers to set the stage for on this Tuesday as well. And baseball breakdowns come your way before the day is through. A full 15-game slate around MLB. All of that, DRS, here in this third and final hour.
Yes, good fun third and final hour here as we ramp it up, because there is a very good Major League Baseball card today, but also more football talk. Who says no at this point? We take a look at those Washington Commanders here, and also, like, do you take a look at the Giants or do you laugh at the Giants? Like, you know how we try to be nice to every team. We're like, oh, let's take a look at their season. We're going to really take a look at the Giants season as well here, which, again, if you're a Giants backer, maybe you should take that Giants head off, throwing the Jets out this year. You know what I mean? Come on.
Whoa,
they do that in
we
the city,
can't
right?
just be
Nets,
tossing our
Knicks,
loyalty.
Yeah. Islanders,
That's
Rangers, Yankees, Mets. What do we do? Or even maybe just the Dallas Cowboys hat altogether in NYC, which you'll find.
Would you take off your Eagles hat and support the Steelers if the year was supposed to be poor for Philadelphia?
No, it's not. Yeah, it's not the same, though. Like in a city, I feel like you can just hide in New York as you're a fan of every team, and maybe even say, you know what, the Devils, maybe rooted for them back in the day because of the proximity. It's a lot of ways you can go in New York. You know what I mean?
A lot of teams, I will agree, in the greater New York, New Jersey area, but still, we don't just dispatch our loyalties because the times get tough. You stay the course. We'll talk about the New York Giants in just a moment, but I do want to start with the Washington Commanders, who have a long price, of course, to win the NFC East and just a win total of 6.5. You see that 10-1 number on Washington to win the NFC East. It's the third of 4, but it's very, very far back from where Dallas is. 6.5 the win total, though. The over has a slight bit more juice at -115. Now, Washington, I think maybe the most intriguing team in this division. this year. Jaden Daniels, number 2 overall pick. Dan Quinn, new head coach in the nation's capital with a new offensive coordinator in Cliff Kingsbury, has confirmed that Jaden Daniels will play for Washington on Saturday in MetLife against the New York Jets in the Commanders' preseason debut. There is optimism for this Commanders side with a changing of coaching staff and a changing of ownership. Just 4 wins a season ago. Donnie, what is your outlook as it pertains to the win total of 6.5 for the Commanders in 2024?
I'm a little bullish on it. I can't lie at this point. Like, I really like Jaden Daniels, but also let's understand the concept of the Washington Commanders. For 20 years, horrendous leadership, and it led from the owner all the way down. The general managers, the front office, the presidents, they're all getting blown out on a day-by-day basis. I remember when the Commanders changed ownership groups, I said the first thing they should do, I don't even care about it if it's the radio booth, the TV booth, whoever it is. If Dan Snyder hired you, remove them from the facility, give them their last paychecks, and start anew. And that seems like what they're doing. Now, also, I didn't agree with the hire here for Dan Quinn to be a head coach, but I understand the concept of what the Commanders are doing. Put a head coach in place that everybody is going to listen to here. If you have a young offensive upstart, I like the young offensive guru that you want to be as a head coach, but they did the next best thing. You went and got the defensive stalwart who you know is going to put out a very good product on defense, and the city's going to like him, the team's going to like him, they're going to listen. Go out and throw that jackknife in there and get Kingsbury, because some people say, that guy's such a terrible head coach, he couldn't last in that offense. Trust me right now, when you take a look at Jaden Daniels, that is the perfect guy to be your quote-unquote head coach of the offense yourself. Dan Quinn's going to say, you know what? You have all the gimmicks you need on offense. I'm going to handle this defense. Show me what you got on game day. I think it works out. You go out and get Austin Eckler. You already have Brian Robinson Jr., Chris Rodriguez Jr. on that roster. You're set at running back. At the wide receiver position, it was such a disaster. And here's why I think a lot of people aren't that high on Washington, because the ownership was terrible, which they were just trying to go through that process of, we're going to sell the team. Let me see what happens here. Eric Bieniemy was a disaster as the offensive coordinator. And it's now apparent where at the end of the season, your very best player, Terry McLaurin, was going, all I do is run cardio out here. You knew it was going to be a bad setup. Ron Rivera was a lame duck head coach. So now they're starting fresh. They have a lot of talent on that offensive side and also a defensive coordinator to get that team in line. I look at this by saying the one thing I know about the Commanders, I don't know if they're going to win the division. But you know what, Ben, on a week-to-week basis, this is now a competent franchise. And that's a whole hell of a lot better than what you could say about this team over the past 4 to 5 years. The direction is solid. So if I'm looking at that team total and saying 6.5, why not 7 wins? Now, you might say also that, well, look, rookie quarterback, we don't know if that's going to be. I get that here. But the one thing I know about Jaden Daniels, if it's 3rd and 7, that pocket breaks down, he might run for 25 yards a clip here. I'm bullish on this team. I think they can get the 7 wins. I do.
Plus 310 for the Commanders to make the NFC postseason. I don't think Donnie or I are advocating that Washington even contends for an NFC wildcard spot. But 7-8 wins, I think that's in the cards this year. Donnie, I think there's a really strong argument to make that the number 1 overall pick, Caleb Williams in Chicago, and the number 2 overall pick, Jaden Daniels in Washington, find themselves in glorious situations to start their careers, which is not often the case for guys that were drafted that early in the NFL, because if you're drafted 1st or 2nd overall or in the top 5, it often means as a QB, you go to a team that's been losing, at least as of late. And the Bears and the Commanders have lost. Chicago, of course, drafting first because of the pick exchange with Carolina. But Washington was 4-13 a year ago. There wasn't optimism outside of the nation's capital. Now there is. You can have your bones about Cliff Kingsbury as a successful NFL head coach. I'd hear it. As an offensive mind, I think he's fantastic. I think with a young rookie quarterback in Jaden Daniels, he's in a great situation. Brian Robinson Jr., Austin Eckler alongside in the backfield, and maybe 2 very underrated wide receivers, Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson, out there out wide. In his Heisman-winning campaign, Jaden Daniels became one of 2 FBS quarterbacks ever to throw for more than 4,000 yards and run for more than 1,000 in a single season, joining Deshaun Watson during his time at Clemson. The guy is going to be good. And I think there is an argument when you look at his 3,050.5-yard passing prop that he can go over that number this year. Again, bullish, I think, is an appropriate word on Washington. Not to be a 10-7 football team and into the postseason, but at least 7 wins over a win total of 6.5, and perhaps more competitive than we have seen the last few seasons. Now to the New York Giants. 6.5, also the win total, but the under has the heavy juice at -150. A very compelling team, DRS, because Daniel Jones is back as the quarterback for the second of his 4-year extension. But Joe Shane brokered the deal to make it very front-loaded so that if things did not work for the G-Men, they could maybe get rid of Daniel Jones following 2024. This is a team that, with Daniel Jones and Brian Daboll's rookie year as a head coach 2 seasons ago, made it to the postseason, upset Minnesota during Super Wild Card weekend. But last year, just a 6-11 football team. What does the 2024 season hold for the New York Giants?
I remember when Brian Daboll was going to be the head coach for the New York Giants, and I sort of like gave myself one of those little face palm myself like this, like, oh, that's not going to be good, because he was my favorite head coach on the market. So they finally got a guy that's going to be able to lead them. But little did I know that Brian Daboll would come in and say, hey, I think Daniel Jones is a good quarterback. So Daboll goes from one of my favorite coaches to one of my least favorite coaches. They also had a general manager by the name of Dave Gettleman, who was an absolute straight up buffoon there. And I said, oh no, they're going to fire him. Anybody is going to be better. You watch some of these, behind the scenes Hard Knocks. I don't know if Dave Gettleman might have been the actual better general manager than Joe Shane at this point, which is insane, because also you start your franchise. Your franchise starts and ends with your quarterback. And let's go back to Joe Shane and Brian Daboll. We all knew that Daniel Jones was a horrendous quarterback. We all laughed that if Daniel Jones hit the free agent market, he would have ended up in the USFL, because nobody in the NFL wanted him here. They re-signed him to $40 million a year. Come on, Giants. That says it all.
A few more words on the Giants next.
Hopefully they learned their lesson. Hey, this ain't the NBA, bro. You don't have 6 fouls, and they will check you on this stuff. And Brooks has a reputation coming into this. You can tell the refs are watching them, and they were on him all the time.
This was 10, 12 years ago. Canada playing Greece with that type of lead that they had. They probably would have mentally crumbled and lost that game to Greece by 3 or 4 points in the final minute of that ball game.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
Where are you at in terms of a starting lineup, what you want to see from Team USA?
I think he'll get guys involved, and then there's your lockdown defender at the point guard, the point of attack, right? I do like Curry. I would then go with Ant. I like Ant over Booker. I think if you look at the way the Canada game was, they looked kind of slow starting, and then they kind of got rolling.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
That race for the Cy Young, pretty much as equally compelling and intriguing as the race for the wild card spots in the National League.
And also keep in mind, this team doesn't pitch the entire season, so his ERA gets affected much, much more if he has a poor outing than, let's just say, Chris Sale or Zach Wheeler that's been there all season long. This would be a fun one to watch it play out, but the big loser last night were the Phillies and Zach Wheeler.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
However many units are on the line, however many people, however many cocktails, like it's a perfect scorecard. And someone questioned him on one hole. He's like, well, one thing I never get wrong is the scorecard. And then we're on like 13 and he's added up and he's like, this is wrong.
I looked back from number 13 and I'm like, I'm missing $140 somewhere. I don't know where I'm missing it. And I'm looking back and I'm like, no, it doesn't match up on 11. And I got to track it back to like number 7.
Only on SportsGrid.
So Donnie made his strong points about the New York Giants entering 2024 and looked at Brian Daboll, the head coach, who won Coach of the Year in his rookie campaign leading the G-Men in 2022, and Joe Shane, who, of course, the two worked together in Buffalo when Shane was the assistant GM under Brandon Beane. But I think it's really fascinating, DRS, to look at the Giants in the scope of this year and beyond. 6.5 the win total. The under has the heavy juice. If the Giants stay under, 5-12 football team, 6-11 football team, do they get a pass to be being brought back next year, that being Brian Daboll as the head coach and Joe Shane as the GM, or are they dispatched? Because they weren't the guys to draft Saquon Barkley or Daniel Jones, but they were the guys to get rid of Saquon Barkley and pay Daniel Jones. So DRS, let's say the odds makers are correct, and the under has the correct juice to the 6.5 win total for the New York Giants. It's a losing season. It's a bad season in the greater New York area. Is Brian Daboll and is Joe Shane back next year for New York?
They shouldn't be, because it's just a catastrophic error. Like, sometimes there are errors that you make that everybody agrees with and you get a pass on. Like, let's just say you're the number one pick in the draft and it went to the Giants, and this whole regime was still the same. You know, same general manager, same coach. And in 3 years, Caleb Williams turned out to be a terrible quarterback. Nobody would go back and revisionist history and say, that's why I told you not to take Caleb. No, everybody wanted Caleb Williams. The fact that when they did draft Daniel Jones, and I don't even care if it was the same regime, you had a chance to come in and it's the perfect playbook. If I'm a coach and I'm a general manager and I get hired to a team, you know what I love to see? I get that one look-see season to say, you know what? No matter what happens, good or bad, they're not going to hold it against me here, and it can all be positive. They should have came together in agreement when Daniel Jones, again, I'm telling you right now, you could have got Daniel Jones for like a 1-year, $10 million contract. Not a single other team was ever vying to pay him any money whatsoever, and that should have told you. It's one of those opportunities where if Daniel Jones was a good quarterback, 10 other ball clubs would be calling you on a day-to-day basis, praying that you let him hit the free agent market because they wanted him. Nobody wanted Daniel Jones. That should have been the number one signal call, because they cut bait there and you're still finding a way to find your quarterback. The people will be honest with you and say, you know what? We just haven't found our guy. Let's just say in the draft they go out this year, trade up, and, you know, even if it was Drake May, who's not been a great camp for New England, at least that will buy you some time. It's okay. Coach and general manager, I'm going to give him 2 to 3 years to grow with this new young quarterback. Nobody thinks Daniel Jones is going to succeed. And also, what is succeeding for Daniel Jones? He throws 16 touchdown passes in 17 games, and now he doesn't even have that big-time running back to hand the football off to. I'm not saying, look, good for Daniel Jones. He won it life. He actually stonewalled the Giants to giving him big-time money contract, then gets injured, and they still keep him here. I mean, he's the big winner in all of this year. He's going to float off into the sunset whether he throws another touchdown pass or not. But if you're looking just as a Giants franchise, you had the chance to take away Daniel Jones and find your identity. So what is the point of this season for the Giants? To find out once again Daniel Jones is not your future quarterback, and you wasted an entire season? And also, are you trying to win 6 or 7 games with Daniel Jones? Let's just say this year goes well for the Giants and it's 8 wins. Now you can't even draft your quarterback next year because you won 8 games. It doesn't make any sense what the Giants are doing. Yeah. They should not be playing Daniel Jones one fraction. They should be blowing this team up and say, I can't wait to find Malik Neighbors, a true quarterback to play with in the future, and get my fan base fired up. This is as low as the Giants are at this point from a fan base, because you tell me, at least the Cowboys, hey, you know, we're going to have a decent season. Washington has their quarterback of the future. They're excited. The Philadelphia Eagles hoping to return back to the Super Bowl. As a Giants fan, what are you looking forward to? Absolutely nothing. You're hoping like the Yankees make a long enough run so you can forget about the Giants beginning of the season.
I think a lot of times in sports, we look at wins and losses. That is the assessment of a season. I think it's beyond that for the New York Giants and what is deemed successful, achievable, and what it means for the future of this Giants franchise. I think Donnie with the steam brought it right there. Now we get you set for this Tuesday over in Paris at the 33rd Olympiad. It is quarterfinal Tuesday, a quadruple header of quarterfinals in men's basketball. Germany victorious early today, beating Greece by 13, sending home Giannis, and the Germans remain a perfect 4-0 into the medal round. That is semifinal action. Will the Americans join Germany there. The United States, the largest favorite in quarterfinal action, 26.5 points against Brazil. Game tips, 3:30 p.m. Eastern time here stateside. Total at 184 and a hook. Team USA, a perfect 3-0 in Group C action, winning by at least 17 points in all three games, but did not cover against South Sudan or Puerto Rico in its finale. So just 1-2 against the spread. What do you want to see, Donnie right side, out of the Americans today as a 26.5 points favorite in the quarterfinal matchup against the Brazilians?
You know that spread's high. I just need a double-digit victory, but not one of those double-digit victories where the game was in balance all the way through, right? You take a look at, hey, we jump out to a 5 or 6 point lead in the first quarter, extend it to 10 at the break, a couple point more lead there in the third quarter, same thing in the fourth. I just want a steady game. I don't want to have to worry about maybe they're on the ropes at this point, but you know what I'm looking forward to seeing even more? This is when it starts to get fun. The best players in the world in a knockout stage, which if you take a look at the All-Star game, the final couple minutes there, right? You take a look at the playoffs as they get deeper, teams dig in on defense. I want to see Team USA really put on a defensive show. Look, of course, hey, score 100 points on offense, fantastic. Let me see you clamp in on defense today to show the world, like, now it means something. We're locked and loaded. Our rotations are set. Let's get after it on the defensive end. So if I was looking at the total, right, 184.5, I want to see an under with a double-digit victory by Team USA. Sure. That would show me they're locked in defensively, and I would like to see that.
The U.S. has scored at least 103 points in all three games they have played in the Olympics. But with point differential no longer being the case here in the knockout rounds, trying to get to the medal round, I agree with Donnie. Under 184 and a hook. It was 185.5 yesterday. It is trending under. We will show you the props for the United States today against Brazil. We'll show you Canada and France, the home nation in the quarterfinals, but booked as an underdog. But just quickly here, second quarterfinal of the day, Serbia and Australia. Just over half a minute remains. The Serbians have come back as a 6.5 point pregame favorite. Nikola Jokic and Team Serbia, though, down by double digits at the break. They lead by 81-80 over the Australians with 32 ticks remaining. The live odds are locked on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Much more over in Paris on this Tuesday. Up next.
Hopefully they learned their lesson. Hey, this ain't the NBA, bro. You don't have 6 fouls, and they will check you on this stuff. And Brooks has a reputation coming into this. You can tell the refs are watching them, and they were on him all the time.
This was 10, 12 years ago. Canada playing Greece with that type of lead that they had. They probably would have mentally crumbled and lost that game to Greece by 3 or 4 points in the final minute of that ball game.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
Where are you at in terms of a starting lineup, what you want to see from Team USA?
I think he'll get guys involved, and then there's your lockdown defender at the point guard, the point of attack, right? I do like Curry. I would then go with Ant. I like Ant over Booker. I think if you look at the way the Canada game was, they looked kind of slow starting, and then they kind of got rolling.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
That race for the Cy Young, pretty much as equally compelling and intriguing as the race for the wild card spots in the National League.
And also keep in mind, this team doesn't pitch the entire season, so his ERA gets affected much, much more if he has a poor outing than, let's just say, Chris Sale or Zach Wheeler that's been there all season long. This would be a fun one to watch it play out, but the big loser last night were the Phillies and Zach Wheeler.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
However many units are on the line, however many people, however many cocktails, like, it's a perfect scorecard. And someone questioned him on one hole. He's like, well, one thing I never get wrong is the scorecard. And then we're on like 13 and he's added up and he's like, this is wrong.
I looked back from number 13 and I'm like, I'm missing $140 somewhere. I don't know where I'm missing it. And I'm looking back and I'm like, no, yeah, it doesn't match up on 11. And I got to track it back to like number 7.
Only on SportsGrid.
It seems as though Serbia is going to hold on. Under 10 ticks remaining, the Serbians lead 81-80 over the Australians in the second quarterfinal game of men's basketball today on this Tuesday. We show you the United States, 26.5-point favorite against Brazil. 184 and a hook is the over-under. Donnie and I both lean to the under. Now let's talk some props. Kevin Durant, the highest points prop for the Americans at 15.5. Carlin Gay yesterday of Sporting News, Bill Bender today, both highlighting Stephen Curry's propensity to go off, which he is not so far in these summer games. You see the points prop there, 2.5 made threes. Might the chef start to cook today over in Petty?
I think he might be able to at this point, but I'm looking more defensive props here, BSS. Like for me, give me some nice rebounds out here. So I'm trying to scroll through. Anthony Davis, 8+ rebounds set at a -116 price, because if I'm saying, look, the offense is going to be there, but also aren't we continually saying of how physical this Brazilian basketball team should be, which means we might get some fouls, but also a lot of contested jump shots and down low. So I'm looking for defensive back for today. Give me Anthony Davis -116. I do think you get a strong performance out of LeBron James, don't get me wrong. And if we are taking a look at the condensed version of this lineup where not everybody gets to play 15+ minutes, then you are going to take a look at that starting lineup, which does include Steph Curry, of getting extended minutes and extended shots, which I do think makes some sense. But I'm looking more defensive today. Give me the rebounding props here.
Think it's a really good point, DRS. Just from a handicapping game flow perspective, when you think about Brazil, we expect them to take a ton of threes. It is the great equalizer for any hefty underdog in a basketball game, Olympics or otherwise. If they're going to shoot a lot of threes and they don't make a ton of threes to keep this game close, a lot of rebounding opportunities for Anthony Davis, Joel Embiid, and of course Bam Adebayo has been sensational over in Paris. The game before the Americans and the Brazilians, it's the host nation in France as a 7.5-point underdog against Team Canada. Can the French use the home crowd to pull off the upset over Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and the Canadians?
Ooh, you know what? I mean, I got to tell you, watching France and just the way they are treating their home talent is fantastic. And also, there's differences between like a worldwide stage and also, let's just say, United States stage where, yes, we will get loud, but the chanting during the game as if everything is a soccer match, I do find intriguing. That place will be exploding when France takes the court here and has a run on momentum. So I'm going to go ahead. This has nothing to do with the X and O's. Give me the hometown boys here, +7.5, because that crowd certainly will not let us down today. That's the way I'm going.
My FanDuel Sportsbook right now is freaking out a tad, so I can't look at the props, but Victor Wembanyama has been sensational. I think a PRA would be a good bet if you can find them. Now from the hardwood to the soccer pitch, it is semifinal Tuesday in the women's soccer tournament. The Americans looking to get to the gold medal match. They're a hefty favorite against Germany, -245 to advance to the final. That is not the 90-minute match bet or anything that would involve extra time, just to advance. Will the United States, Donnie's pride and joy when it comes to international soccer, advance to a gold medal match at the Olympic Games?
Absolutely no doubt about it. Team USA moves forward there. We're going to be biting gold medals before you know it, Ben.
Love it. Right now, though, the Americans 40 cents behind the Spaniards, who are a hefty favorite today against Team Brazil in that gold medal outright odds. With the Americans being underdog, it seems as that would be the side against Spain. Elsewhere, notable Tuesday Olympic events. The women's 200-meter final. Gabrielle Thomas for the Americans, a hefty favorite at over $2. Again, my FanDuel Sportsbook app is kind of freaking out a little bit here, so I don't have some of the updated odds. But Gabrielle Thomas expected to win the 200-meter.
Yeah, and by the way, when is the men's 200 meters? Is that today? Do we get a semifinal, did you say today? Because I like it.
I don't know. I don't
want to miss it. Oh, not okay. I don't want to miss it.
But I think the final is tomorrow, but then I read in a publication it was Thursday. Finals Thursday. Semifinal tomorrow?
Okay.
Thank you. Semifinal tomorrow.
All right.
Noah Lyles listed right now as minus 600 to win his second gold at the Paris Olympic Games. Of course, the fastest man on planet Earth with the closest finish you will ever see in the 100-meter. Chang and Hughes, that's Kelly Chang and Sarah Hughes, take on Switzerland in quarterfinal beach volleyball action. Minus 140, that moneyline price to win this match and get into the semifinal. Second best odds to win the gold medal. MLB breakdowns around the bigs up next here on the Early Line.
Hopefully they learned their lesson. Hey, this ain't the NBA, bro. You don't have 6 fouls, and they will check you on this stuff. And Brooks has a reputation coming into this. You can tell the refs are watching them, and they were on him all the time.
This was 10, 12 years ago. Canada playing Greece with that type of lead that they had. They probably would have mentally crumbled and lost that game to Greece by 3 or 4 points in the final minute of that ball game.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
Where are you at in terms of a starting lineup, what you want to see from Team USA?
I think he'll get guys involved, and then there's your lockdown defender at the point guard, the point of attack, right? I do like Curry. I would then go with Ant. I like Ant over Booker. I think if you look at the way the Canada game was, they looked kind of slow starting, and then they kind of got rolling.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
That race for the Cy Young, pretty much as equally compelling and intriguing as the race for the wild card spots in the National League.
And also keep in mind, this team doesn't pitch the entire season, so his ERA gets affected much, much more if he has a poor outing than, let's just say, Chris Sale or Zach Wheeler that's been there all season long. This would be a fun one to watch it play out, but the big loser last night were the Phillies and Zach Wheeler.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
However many units are on the line, however many people, however many cocktails, like it's a perfect scorecard. And someone questioned him on one hole. He's like, well, one thing I never get wrong is the scorecard. And then we're on like 13 and he's added up and he's like, this is wrong.
I looked back from number 13 and I'm like, I'm missing $140 somewhere. I don't know where I'm missing it. And I'm looking back and I'm like, no, yeah, it doesn't match up on 11. And I got to track it back to like number 7.
Only on SportsGrid.
Live right here on the Early Line, it is game number 2 of the marquee matchup this week during Major League Baseball. It's out in L.A. It's the Dodgers and the Phillies. So far in this set, the Dodgers took the opener last night, 5-3 the final over the Phils. Philadelphia opened up an early lead once again. It did not end that way. The Phils, since the All-Star break, 4-12. The Dodgers, 10-6. Today, it's virtually a pick'em in Los Angeles. Clayton Kershaw, yet another start, his third of this MLB season. Minus 110 for Los Angeles. Minus 106 on the other side for Philadelphia. The over-under, 8.5. Can the Phils even this set? Or will the Dodgers already at least win the series against Philadelphia tonight?
They should. If this was 10 years ago, Clayton Kershaw, Dodgers, Chavez Ravine, it should be an easy victory for the Dodgers. I don't think that's going to be the case because of what we possibly are getting out of Clayton Kershaw tonight. But we'll start here with the Philadelphia Phillies side of things. Christopher Sanchez on the mound looking for a bounce-back effort. And quite frankly, the Phillies' entire lineup is looking for bounce-back efforts on a day-to-day basis. But if we are looking at just the power numbers for Christopher Sanchez against him this year, he's a left-handed pitcher. Take a look at this. Lefties and righties combined, Ben, an .075 ISO. That is tremendous. batters. Last 30 days, it does rise a little bit to 0.94, which means he's going to keep the ball in the ballpark and also limit the damage of triples and doubles, hopefully holding them to singles. But also, you got to take a look at who he's going up against. The Dodgers, typically it's like, hey, that's a pretty good hitting team. Not against lefties and not over the past 30 days, Ben. You take a look at this lineup. Teoscar Hernandez and Freddie Freeman, 26 at-bats and 21 bats combined, along with Ahmed Rosario, have solid numbers ISO power-wise and weighted on base percentage. The other guys, Shohei Ohtani, Will Smith, Pages, Hernandez, Lux, and Ahmed have been dreadful against left-handed pitchers. So if Sanchez in a pitcher's ballpark brings his A game, you think runs might be of a premium here to the Dodgers. Now let's flip it over to Clayton Kershaw, who again, we're not dealing with Clayton Kershaw, the ghost of the past when he was maybe the most dominant pitcher in Major League Baseball. He's a left-handed pitcher that really struggles with right-handed batters. But this Phillies lineup, if you're looking at the first 6 batters, 5 of those guys elevated numbers against left-handed pitching. The only guy that's not elevated is JT Realmuto with 1 at-bat, which obviously he probably either struck out or grounded out at that point. But Schwarber, Turner, Harper, Bohm, and Castellanos, all higher numbers. So if we're just being optimistic tonight and saying, don't take a look at what the Phillies have done in the past, they do have the better pitcher on the mound and the better lineup in play tonight. That should equate to a victory. I'll stand on that.
We'll see where the line ends up. Again, the Dodgers only an underdog 13 times this year, but when booked as a dog, there is a reason why. They are 4-9. The most recent time last week, it was Clayton Kershaw getting a start against Dylan Cease. Kershaw's made 2 starts this year. It is year number 17 in Major League Baseball, all with LA. 17 or 18. I'll look at his years of service here in just a moment. But in the 2 starts that he has made this season, 7 2/3 on the bump. He has allowed 5 earned runs, and the Dodgers have split his 2 games. They won his first debut of this season against San Francisco. They lost last week 8-1 against San Diego. 0-1 the record for Kershaw with a 5.87 ERA. So yes, LA is the slight favorite, but it's not Clayton Kershaw of 2012 or even just a few years back. Philadelphia trying to get back to their winning ways. The 2 teams enter tonight separated by just a half game atop the National League standings. Philly has that half-game lead. Could it flip by the end of tonight in Los Angeles? Only 9 games yesterday in Major League Baseball. Plenty more today. If the 2 top teams in the National League face off in Los Angeles, teams 3 and 4, at least from a record perspective, face off this week starting today in Atlanta. The Braves host the Brewers, -132, the number in favor of Atlanta. A total of 9 today in the ATL. What do you like between the Braves and the Brew Crew?
I think the Atlanta Braves deserve to be a favorite here of at least 125 or higher, which they are at the FanDuel Sportsbook. You take a look at Colin Reyes on the mound. He's been dominant as a right-handed pitcher against left-handed batters, but struggling a bit against right-handed batters. But if you are looking at the past 30 days for this Braves lineup, it is starting to improve against right-handed pitching. Above average ISO power numbers, Austin Riley, Marcell Ozuna, Matt Olson, Orlando Arcia, Jared Kelenic, Whit Merrifield. How about that, believe it or not, a 222 ISO against right-handed pitching. And also, if we're looking at Bryce Elder, usually it's the guy like, oh, I hope maybe like a Chris Sales on the mound today. Not the case, but he hasn't been bad overall, because if we are checking out his statistics over the past 60 days, an 82 xFIP minus, the ERA is a little bit high, but his xFIP number, 3.31, Sierra, 3.52, all manageable. And you take a look at that lineup, which leaves a lot to be desired at times for Milwaukee. Now, granted, are they both frontline pitchers? No, they're not. You are playing Atlanta. It's going to be muggy tonight in the high 80s. Slight wind blowing out, so it's always tempting to take those overs, but it does take 10 runs to beat you tonight. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I do think the stronger play to me is I think Atlanta handles their business tonight and knocks off Milwaukee. I would take them money line.
The Braves still the highest under percentage in MLB, more than 62% of their games, including all 4 this weekend at home against Miami. They split that series, by the way. For a second straight night, the Lone Star State battle in Arlington rages on. It is Texas and Houston. The Astros with Framber Valdez on the bump, a road favorite tonight. It was the Rangers walking it off yesterday in extras. A Josh Smith 2-run home run was the difference. What happens in game number 2?
You know what's going to be interesting about this game as you're trying to set this up is we have a pitcher that's going to be making his major league debut this season. Those are always tough to say. You know what? I have an exact idea of how he's going to fare. But the one thing I do know is Framber Valdez on the opposite side as a left-handed pitcher. He's been one of the better pitchers in Major League Baseball, even over the last 60 days. A 73 xFIP minus number, a 3.02 xFIP number. And if we're just looking at the statistics over the last 98 batters, Ben, that he faced, you take a look at an 088 ISO, a weighted on base percentage of 254. Now let's throw it over to the Texas lineup. Forget about even who's on the mound pitching for them. Let's just see how they've done against left-handed pitchers over the past 30 days. Adolis Garcia, only 7 at-bats. He's done really well. Robbie Grossman, only 15 at-bats. He's done really well. Now you want to take a look at some of the other players, just ISO power number-wise. A 0 for Simeon, a 0 for Seager, a 0 for Langford, a 0 for Jung, a 0 for Heim, a 0 for Duran, a 0 for Tavares. That paints the picture right now. You're seeing a price point of, what's the updated number? Do we have that graphic up here? It was like 125, 130-ish, I believe. Like, I don't know why technically, really, it is that low if that's the pitching matchup that we're getting tonight. So, I would go with public play. I don't care. I'd go with the Astros.
So Tyler Mahle gets the start today for the Rangers. Again, he has been around Major League Baseball the last few years. I believe he was in Cincinnati most recently.
Yes.
I will check that. In Minnesota, he was in Cincy and then pitched with the Twins, at least in part in 2022 and last year in 2023. I loved him on the Reds when I started working here at the SportsGrid Network. One of my favorite K-prop looks, of course, makes his season debut tonight for Texas. When you look at these two teams, DRS, the Astros now back by 1.5 games in the American League West behind Seattle. Houston has lost 6 of its last 8. Texas, despite the win in the opener yesterday against the Stros, has still lost 7 of its last 10. So both teams looking to play better baseball against their in-state rival. The Royals lost yesterday at home 9-5 against the Red Sox. Boston has won 5 of its last 7. KC 6 of its last 8. Both teams battling for that third and final American League wildcard spot. The Royals still hold a 1.5 game advantage over Boston. Seth Lugo gets the start tonight for KC. Minus 130 on the money line. Total is 8.5. What's the play in this Midwest matchup?
Yeah, this is going to be a good one. I do think this one's closer to a coin flip, typically to what we saw yesterday, which I actually think Kansas City should have won, but they didn't because the bats for the Red Sox certainly were hot. But what a difference a day makes here, Ben. We were talking about 90-degree temperatures and the wind blowing out yesterday. Now we're talking about 70-degree temperatures, not 70, but mid-70s at that point, but the wind blowing in 9 miles an hour, which could have an effect here. You take a look at Seth Lugo over the past 60 days, an 84 xFIP minus number, but a 3.14 ERA. So those two numbers match up. Brian Bayo, take a look at this, a 93 xFIP minus, which is above average for a pitcher, but an ERA coming in at close to 6. So sort of pitching and getting a little bit unlucky at this point. So let's just say those analytical numbers do hold true. Why not take Boston at a slight price point here as a dog?
I like the look, DRS. More on the early line next.
Hopefully they learned their lesson. Hey, this ain't the NBA, bro. You don't have 6 fouls, and they will check you on this stuff. And Brooks has a reputation coming into this. You can tell the refs are watching them, and they were on him all the time.
This was 10, 12 years ago. Canada playing Greece with that type of lead that they had. They probably would have mentally crumbled and lost that game to Greece by 3 or 4 points in the final minute of that ball game.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
Where are you at in terms of a starting lineup, what you want to see from Team USA?
I think he'll get guys involved, and then there's your lockdown defender at the point guard, the point of attack, right? I do like Curry. I would then go with Ant. I like Ant over Booker. I think if you look at the way the Canada game was, they looked kind of slow starting, and then they kind of got rolling.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
That race for the Cy Young
pretty much as equally compelling and intriguing as the race for the wild card spots in the National League.
And also keep in mind, this team doesn't pitch the entire season, so his ERA gets affected much, much more if he has a poor outing than, let's just say, Chris Sale or Zach Wheeler that's been there all season long. This would be a fun one to watch it play out, but the big loser last night were the Phillies and Zach Wheeler.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
However many units are on the line, however many people, however many cocktails, like it's a perfect scorecard. And someone questioned him on one hole. He's like, well, one thing I never get wrong is the scorecard. And then we're on like 13 and he's added up and he's like, this is wrong.
I looked back from number 13 and I'm like, I'm missing $140 somewhere. I don't know where I'm missing it. And I'm looking back and I'm like, no, yeah, it doesn't match up on 11. And I got to track it back to like number 7.
Only on SportsGrid.
Could it be a record-setting day in Oakland? Yesterday it was. The White Sox making history for all of the wrong reasons, losing 21 straight games to the A's in their series opener. 5-1 was the final. That matches the longest losing skid in the history of the American League, tying the Baltimore Orioles back in 1988, who started that season 0-21. Could the White Sox drop 22 straight today against the A's? The Athletics nearly a $2 favorite to do it once again. Joe Frizo, well done, feeling 22. That is a good headline. 8.5 is the total for today's game by the Bay. 22 straight losses, DRS. Is it going to happen tonight?
Feeling 22, about to fall into a blank space right now with another loss. Could be amazing out there on the West Coast. I wonder how many people are going to show up for this game here, but let's just talk about the optics of it. The Oakland Athletics with Ross Stripling on the mound are close to a $2 price. That is absolutely outrageous. But what gives you any hope? Like, we started this by having the recap yesterday for what happened between Oakland and Chicago. And forget about the game itself. You just look at that roster 1 through 9 and go, can anybody get base hits? And it's the same thing once again today, because if you're lining up the Chicago White Sox team against Stripling, who's not a great pitcher, but actually does have some decent statistics with ISO power number weighted on base percentage. But just look at this lineup here. Vargas, Baldwin, Robert, Sheets, Vaughn, Sosa, Fletcher, all below the Mendoza line for ISO power numbers. So if you have 7 dead bats in the lineup and just 2 decent ones, and those 2 decent ones are Benintendi and Corey Lee, which we told you are hitting around 150 apiece, it feels like, for both of them, I don't give too many high hopes. But also now you're taking a look here. Like, forget about the X's and O's on the field and who actually has the better statistics. You have one side that really doesn't want to lose 22 straight games. Why? Because it's embarrassing, and you're setting yourself up for historic numbers in the wrong direction. But also if you're Oakland, man, you guys just lost to a team that lost 21 straight. That's terrible. So it's almost like you have like the competing sides. Like, we don't want to be embarrassed, and the other side doesn't want to be embarrassed at the same time. But I don't know who's betting on the White Sox. That is a dead team walking in a dead environment in Oakland. They'll probably get blistered again today.
Yeah, I would expect that to be the case. I don't know how it ends. Baseball is a random sport, so things could happen that surprise you each and every day. It just looks really porous at this moment. And yes, it is a 21-game skid for Chicago at this moment, but they are 61 games. 61 below 500. 27-88 is the overall record this year for the White Sox. Next up, we go to Cleveland, where the Guardians have a half-game lead over both Baltimore and New York for the best record in the AL. But this week in the land, one of the hottest teams in baseball. The Diamondbacks have won 10 of their last 12 games. It's a virtual pick'em once again, as it was yesterday in Cleveland. The Guardians now a slight home favorite. Will they even out this set, at least through its first 2 games against Arizona today?
Let me tell you a little tale. You take a look at Ben Lively, who's actually been a decent pitcher here for the Cleveland Guardians on the season, but that's not even where I want to go at this point. His ISO power numbers are 229 as total for the last 30 days against 114 batters. But if we isolate that to just left-handed batters, it's a 259 and a weighted on base percentage of 331. So you say to yourself, okay, maybe Lively does well against right-handed batters, which he's doing, but how does he do against the lefties? I just told you. Look at the first 4 batters in the lineup today. 2 lefties, 2 switch hitters, which means, Ben, they'll all be left-handed batters. Corbin Carroll, 69 at-bats against right-handed pitching over the past 30 days, a 414 ISO and a weighted on base percentage of 442. That's off the charts. Ketel Marte, he'll be a switch hitter today. His last 56 at-bats against right-handed pitching, a 458 ISO and a 470 weighted on base position. Take a look at Jock Peterson here. 49 at-bats against right-handed pitching as a left-handed batter. A 410 ISO power number, weighted on base percentage 453. Josh Bell, 68 at-bats against right-handed pitching as a lefty. 300 ISO, 396 weighted on base percentage. That is insane to start the game. So forget about the side itself. Look at one of those first four batters here. You want props just to say hit a home run? They all check out. You want RBI props? They all check out. You want total bases? They all check out at this point. Here's the only issue. Wind blowing in from right field 13 miles an hour and a rainy forecast in the low 70s. I hope this game plays. And if it does, those lefties on the Diamondbacks should be doing damage once again today.
Yesterday, DRS tried to fade David Festa, the starter for Minnesota. He was sensational. 5 innings of shutout work, striking out 9 as the Twins won the opener in Wrigley 3-0 over the Cubs. A great pitching matchup today. A dead even pick of -108 on both sides with a total of 6.5. It's Shota Imanaga for the Cubs. It's Pablo Lopez on the other side for the Twins. What do you like at Wrigley?
Is that what it is now? Like, let me just get it is. And by the way, some outlets are a 6 even right now. Say this doesn't make sense. And it always goes back to the notion, like, we understand. Like, you don't have to hit the ball in the air and hit home runs to score runs. You can have singles and doubles and still do fine. But there is the wind blowing here consistently at just around 20 miles an hour, dead in from center field. And you don't have pitchers that are susceptible to the long ball getting waylaid out there. You have 2 good pitchers on the mound. But I got to tell you, is this one of those we usually break this out for football season, Ben? Principal plays, a 6. Don't you feel the obligation to take over the 6? I mean, honestly, it's like an NFL game that they go, hey, you know, it's going to be bad weather, but it's going to be 30.5 points. You're like, wait a second here. Sometimes you just have to say, throw this game out. I understand the weather. What happens if the wind isn't so bad at game time here? And you're going to give me a 6? Come on now.
I would agree with you. It's a postseason total that maybe we can see at least some runs. 7 wins today. 7 gets the victory, and the under has the juice at 6.5 on FanDuel. Why some other outlets perhaps are showing a 6. 2 teams trying to stay in the wild card race in their respective leagues. The Cardinals in the NL, the Rays in the American League. St. Louis got shut out yesterday in that standalone game against the New York Mets. They remain in the Lou with Sonny Gray on the bump and booked as greater than $1.50 favorite. 7.5 is the total.
And Sonny Gray is the best XFIP minus number on the card here, Ben, at a 69. His ERA, though, over the past 60 days is right around a 4.5, which is bad. But that XFIP number, 2.80 and a nice Sierra of 3.09. Sonny Gray should be able to step up to the plate against a lineup I don't love for Tampa on the road. They need a bounce-back performance after getting embarrassed yesterday, and I think they get it with Sonny Gray.
Jeffrey Springs gets the start. Is it his debut here in this MLB season? He was off to a great start.
Yeah, he's got a
previous start,
I think. Yeah.
Second start. He was great last year for Tampa to start the season. DRS, enjoy the money line. We'll talk tomorrow. More on TEL comes your way next.
Hopefully they learned their lesson. Hey, this ain't the NBA, bro. You don't have 6 fouls, and they will check you on this stuff. And Brooks has a reputation coming into this. You can tell the refs are watching them, and they were on him all the time.
This was 10, 12 years ago. Canada playing Greece with that type of lead that they had. They probably would have mentally crumbled and lost that game to Greece by 3 or 4 points in the final minute of that ball game.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
Where are you at in terms of a starting lineup? What you want to see from Team USA?
I think he'll get guys involved, and then there's your lockdown defender at the point guard, the point of attack, right? I do like Curry. I would then go with Ant. I like Ant over Booker. I think if you look at the way the Canada game was, they looked kind of slow starting, and then they kind of got rolling.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
that race for the Cy Young, pretty much as equally compelling and intriguing as the race for the wild card spots in the National League.
And also keep in mind, this team doesn't pitch the entire season, so his ERA gets affected much, much more if he has a poor outing than, let's just say, Chris Sale or Zach Wheeler that's been there all season long. This would be a fun one to watch it play out, but the big loser last night were the Phillies and Zach Wheeler.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
However many units are on the line, however many people, however many cocktails, like it's a perfect scorecard. And someone questioned him on one hole. He's like, well, one thing I never get wrong is the scorecard. And then we're on like 13 and he's added up and he's like, this is wrong.
I looked back from number 13 and I'm like, I'm missing $140 somewhere. I don't know where I'm missing it. And I'm looking back and I'm like, no, yeah, it doesn't match up on 11. And I got to track it back to like number 7.
Only on SportsGrid.
Live right here on the Early Line on SportsGrid to round out these 3 hours together. I'm Ben Stevens. Of course, DRS will be back tomorrow on a Wednesday on TEL. Let's talk NFL preseason football, shall we? Training camp underway all around the National Football League, and it is the first full week of preseason action that we have. It starts with a doubleheader. That's two games on Thursday that really kick off the preseason. Yes, we had the exhibition game that is the Hall of Fame game in Canton last Thursday between the Bears and the Texans, but now everybody gets in the fold starting this week. And we've seen some joint practices already, things getting chippy and fiery between the Giants and the Lions. One of the 2 games that we will see on Thursday, both set to kick a little bit after 7 p.m. Eastern time. The Giants, a 3.5-point favorite against Detroit, the over-under 34.5. The line on the move for the other game on Thursday night of the doubleheader at Gillette Stadium in Foxborough. It's the New England Patriots taking on the Carolina Panthers. The Pats, a 4.5-point favorite. The total, 34.5. We use this game to not only examine preseason handicapping, but what preseason could tell us about how this regular season plays out. The Panthers, the worst team in the National Football League a season ago. Just 2-15 straight up, 4-11-2. Against the spread as an underdog in all 17 games. The Patriots not much better as an underdog a season ago, and New England will enter this year expected to be the worst team in the National Football League. 4.5 the win total for the Patriots. The over does have the juice under Gerard Mayo for his rookie campaign in Foxborough, but still, the Patriots have the worst record in the National Football League, or at least the lowest win total. So as we look at how this season could play out, worst regular season record. The Patriots are favored, or at least have the shortest price, the most likely number to have that worst regular season mark at plus 310. Then it's the Broncos, whose win total is 5.5. The under has the juice. Then it's the Panthers at plus 750. Carolina's win total 5.5. The over has the juice. So you might be thinking to yourself, why are we talking about a preseason game that means really nothing in the grand scheme of this NFL campaign between 2 of the 3 worst expected teams in the National Football League this year? Because this is our opportunity. Some out there might say to you, don't watch preseason football. It's meaningless. All right, you're going to watch because it's football. That's fantastic to have on your television screen. Don't bet on it. There's no way to handicap. I would disagree. I think there are edges to be had in preseason football, especially week number 1. Now, the Patriots will more than likely not be favored against any single team they play. Any of their 17 opponents, or at least in their 17 games throughout 2024. So what in the world is New England doing as a 4.5-point favorite for its opening preseason game against the Panthers? Well, the Panthers stink. They're 4-11-2 against the spread last year. We understand that. But reports out of Carolina is that Bryce Young is looking good under new head coach and offensive mind. Dave Canales. I expect the Panthers to be better this year. It's hard to be worse. That would be 0 wins or 1 win. So, of course, when the floor is low, improvement is the anticipation. But then why is Carolina, who is also going to struggle this year from the odds maker's perspective, a 4.5-point dog? Their guys have to go out there, improvement. Roster spots are up for grabs, and New England's roster is not overly very good. I believe the odds makers are incorrect in making the Patriots, albeit at home, a 4.5-point favorite. Give me Carolina plus 4.5, and with that plus money on the money line. And there is the handicapping perspective of preseason. Are there quantifiable metrics that say Carolina is the side based on the trends for a preseason game? No. But can you look at the roster and the depth chart and the spots available for the Panthers, knowing what this year must mean for Bryce Young and first-year head coach Dave Canales? I think there are some edges to be had. By no means does this make me think the Panthers are a team that's going to win 7 or 8 games this year and have a wildly successful season. But this might be the only time I wager on Carolina in 2024, thus using that preseason handicapping approach. Again, the odds not overly optimistic for either of these two squads entering 2024, despite the fact the Patriots have the lowest win total in the NFL. The Panthers have the longest price to win Super Bowl 59 at 300-1. The early line returns tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. You're on SportsGrid.